Hey Siri, what's 2788 plus 9120?
It's 11,908.
Whoa. Hey Siri, what is the meaning of hullabaloo?
Hullabaloo is an informal term. It means a commotion, a fuss.
Hey Siri, how deep is the Indian Ocean?
The answer I found is 7.45 kilometers.
She's awesome, right? So convenient. Ha. We'll talk about her a little later. For now, let's answer the question, why did Samson get a haircut? Was he going for prom? Maybe Mahatma Gandhi had a big influence on him. No, wait. He wasn't even born back then. Damn, that's so confusing. Then why did he do it? I mean, that was the source of his strength. Why would he get rid of that? We might need to ask his barber. But before we do that, we need to answer the question, why does anyone, for that matter, do dumb things? One possible answer could be that there's something wrong with our minds. I mean, that's where the dumb decision making happens, right? The mind is renewed by God's principles. And every principle comes with God's parameters. And the parameters are for our protection. Do you understand what I'm saying? If not, let me explain. As we know, God created sex. So it's something that is good. And his principle was be fruitful and multiply. So basically, have sex. As we know, every principle comes with parameters. And the parameter for this principle is that sex should be confined in marriage with the one and only person that you choose to spend the rest of your life with. And how is this parameter for our protection? It's because every time we step out of this parameter, we are giving a part of ourselves to someone else, or that many someone else's out there, until there's barely anything left for us to give to the one that really deserves it. That's messed up. Hence, God protects us from it with those parameters, which we are willing to break because we don't completely understand it. Another example could be you're struggling financially and things are just too difficult. So you ask God for help, and God blesses you with an amazing job and a really good salary, and you're super happy. Then He sets up a parameter, and all He asks from you is to stay in it. The parameter that says, love others like I have loved you, show generosity and kindness, be a blessing to others, now that you are blessed. And most of all, don't forget me. But what ends up happening? Greed comes in. Now we want more. God isn't a part of our routine, and we have no time to spread the love and blessings like He wants us to. What just happened? We just stepped out of His parameter, and now that we are no longer in it, in His protection, everything around us comes crashing down. Problem is, we abuse our blessings. We abuse the principle that God wants us to have an abundant life by stepping out of His protection. We cannot just obey simple rules that He has set for us. Now we are about to see how Samson steps out of his parameter that God set for him. Let's get to the story of Samson. A story of a man stepping out of God's parameters that were set up for his protection. An angel of the Lord told Samson's mom, for you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor is to come on his head, for the boy shall be a Nazarite to God from birth. If you read the footnote for this word, Nazarite, it means one that's separated, one that's consecrated. So he was consecrated to God, and the parameter set for him was no razor is to come on his head. In other words, he should not cut his hair. There was no reason given. As you can see, it was just God saying, I'm giving you a blessing, but there are these parameters. And they were given full opportunity to honor God with their obedience. Just like Adam and Eve, they were given the whole garden. But the parameter that God set was just around that one tree. We need to keep in mind something. Obedience isn't about it making sense. It's about because God said so and we honor Him. That's why we obey. In this current time and age, we feel we need an answer to everything. There's Google. Type in whatever you want to know, and it's going to tell you. There's Cortana, there's Alexa. And like you saw me speaking to Siri earlier, I want to know something, I want to understand something, I just can. It's that easy. And even though those things can be used for good, we have been so pampered by it that we think God owes us the same. If the world can tell me why, then why can't God tell me why? You owe me an explanation, God. For everything you tell me to do, I need to know. No, He doesn't. He made you. He knows you best. Abraham didn't ask 100 questions even when God told him to kill his son. The problem with our world today is we demand answers, even from God. You see, we need to obey because we honor, not because we understand. This is very important. Coming back to Samson, his power was in his hair. So we see that the best part about him was held within God's parameters. As long as he was within it, he would be under God's protection. He would be powerful. Now we fast forward to Judges 16:4. Enter Delilah. After this, he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. So Samson fell in love. Make note, there is no mention that Delilah was in love too. So he fell in love with something that wasn't in love with him. She had her own intentions. In our world too, we end up loving people or things that don't even have the capacity to love us back. So Judges 16:6. So Delilah said to Samson, "Please tell me what makes your strength so great and how you could be bound so that one could subdue you." She wasn't even being discreet. And this dum-dum is still entertaining her? Instead of running the other way? What? He replies, Judges 16:7. Samson said to her, "If they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings that are not dried out, then I shall become weak and be like anyone else." I'll quickly paraphrase what happens next. She binds him with the bowstrings. Philistines come to attack him. She yells, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." He obviously snaps the strings and gets free because that was not really the source of his strength. Then Delilah said to Samson, "You have mocked me and told me lies. Please tell me how you could be bound." He said to her, "If they bind me with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like anyone else." Wait a minute. Are you kidding me? After what just happened, this fool is still trying to stay in this relationship, let alone tell another lie to keep it around? She wasn't even asking in code or indirectly. She's just, man, this guy, Dumbo. Okay, wait. Now we're calling Samsung a dum dum, but damn, aren't we pretty much the same? We too are often keeping around things in our lives that we know are keeping us tied down and that are not good for us. Now we know how the story ends. He eventually loses his strength, but imagine if he just walked away then and there. He wouldn't have lost all his power. We seriously need to disconnect from all the things and people that are keeping us tied down. And if you see what happens in Judges 16:11, he lies again. So what we see is that he not only remains tied to a bad relationship, but those ties are now causing him to tell lies. More sin. The same things and people that are keeping you tied up are not only restraining you from your calling, but now they are also detaining you from your purpose while causing you to sin more. Moving on, Delilah takes the new ropes and binds him again and yells once more, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." What does he do? He snaps the ropes again. Duh. He's still a strong man. What does she say then? Judges 16:13. Then Delilah said to Samson, "Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me how you could be bound." He said to her, "If you weave the 7 locks of my head with the web and make it tight with the pin, then I shall become weak and be like anyone else." Yo, what the heck is going on? Honestly, tell me, if you were there right next to Samson, wouldn't you just want to give him one tight one? My gosh, this guy. Whew. But if we be real, we're the same. We too find it hard to give up things and people because we're in love. In love with that person, in love with that job, in love with that place, in love with that object, in love with that addiction. While all these don't love us back, but instead will lead us to our own self destruction, eventually leading us out of the parameter that God has set. So, as we read on in Judges, she does as he said again. The Philistines come again. He gets free again. The secret still isn't revealed. I don't understand how this guy just doesn't see it. Oh, wait, it's because he's in love. Love makes you do some stupid things. Okay, now she's really upset. So the manipulation gets deeper. Judges 16:15. Then she said to him, "How can you say, 'I love you,' when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me 3 times now, and have not told me what makes your strength so great." Finally, after she had nagged him with her words day after day and pestered him, he was tired to death. He was tired to death. This dude was so fed up that he was tired to death, but yet didn't want to get loose because his ties were on too strong. Are you bound to something so tightly that you can't get loose, and it's controlling your life, that it's making you tired to death? Judges 16:17. So he told her his whole secret and said to her, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If my head was shaved, then my strength would leave me. I would become weak and be like anyone else." And that was it. He had just stepped out of God's parameter for him. And then we see in verse 19, she let him fall asleep on her lap. And she called a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. He began to weaken and his strength left him. We need to be careful on whose lap we are laying our heads. And by lay our heads, I mean put our trust in. Do not let yourself lay in the lap of people who will take you out of your purpose, who will lead you to sin, who will make you step out of the parameter that God has set for you. Do not lay your head in the lap of anger, pride, money, fame, all kinds of addictions. Be careful where you place your head. We all know what happens next. He loses his strength, then he gets captured. You can read the whole thing in Judges 16 if you want to know the details, but I would like to read this one verse. For all of us people who have stepped out of God's parameter and have lost because of it, what happens to us then? Is all hope lost? Judges 16:22. But the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. There is good news. The Lord will restore all that has been lost if we just go back to him. Further confirmation, 1 Corinthians 7:23. You were bought with a price. Do not become slaves of human masters. We don't have to be tied anymore because we've been paid for. We've been set free. The only thing we need to tie ourselves to is God. Remember, the more unhealthy things or people that we have in our lives, the lesser space we will have for the wonderful and blessed ones to take its place. Our P for today should be pretty obvious by now. It's parameter. Stay inside the parameter that God has called you to be in. And we finally answer our question for today. Why did Samson get a haircut? It's because he stepped out of the parameter. He stepped out of God's protection. Take some time in personal prayer and examine what are the things that are tying us down, that we have fallen in love with, but doesn't love us back. Instead, is pulling us away from God. Once you know what that is, no matter how hard the knot, remember, you can be set free because of Him. And if you don't want to be bound by the world ever again, tie yourself to Jesus. A good visual aid is this. Imagine this is you, and this is Jesus. And you want to stay close to Him at all times so that you don't get tied with other things that are going to bring you down. So what you do is you tie yourself to him. Now you are close to him. But if something comes along and it's trying to distract you, it's trying to tie you to them, what happens is you're pulled back. You keep being pulled back. No matter how hard you try, you just get pulled back because Jesus wants you near him and you've chosen to tie yourself to Jesus. Nothing can get you away from him. Stay in the parameter, away from any trap. Stay in his protection, even when you nap. So you may be blessed in only Jesus' lap. Peace.